Not everyone understands how biotechnology works, and that makes sense. It's a very complicated field. But so was electricity. I don't even remember when it was that I learned how electricity worked. And I don't think about that when I flip a switch. I just expect that when I flip a switch, a light will turn on. And I expect that it will work as I expect it to. It will brighten the room, and sometimes I'll have to change the light bulb, but I know how to do that much, right? I hope that the way that we are creating biology as a technology will be as useful to people that they trust the products that are made, even if they have the potential to be as dangerous as electricity is. And I hope that people see IndieBio as a place that is using biology as a technology in a way that is benefiting humankind and our planet as we build our community.
For the changes that we want to see in the world, whether it's human planetary health or cure cancer, the quickest way to make these changes a reality is through entrepreneurship.
New York is a great place for startups. It's a great place now for life science startups as well.
It brings together people who have a very kind of unique phenotype and enables them to learn from one another.
So the Empire State Development Fund actually provided $25 million of investment into IndieBio to operate for the next 10 years or so in the New York area. And as a consequence, that money has trickled down into the companies that we back.
Everyone who has come to New York is here to make it big, and that includes, of course, the startup founders that we work with.
Maybe mom and dad were right when they told me this wouldn't be nothing. Maybe I should take their advice, go get a life, or maybe get a job or something. Pack it up and head back home, tell everybody I was bluffing. Maybe I'll just get out my head and focus on what I know's coming. Yeah.
So our company mission at InsoBio is to make genomics more accessible, and to do so by building uniquely innovative tools as a front-end processor of biology.
With TomTex, we envision the world where people surrounding themselves with high-performance materials, sources direct from waste, not fossil fuel.
At Helix, we are making therapy-safe guide RNAs, and we are helping therapy companies to get to market faster by accelerating CRISPR-based cell and gene therapies.
At BOSQUE Foods, we are creating next-generation meat alternative, starting with whole muscle meat products grown naturally from mycelium.
Killing produces meat proteins inside plants.
I'm Mehdi Javidmard, co-founder and CEO of RizLab Health, where we are building the world's first lightweight, portable, white blood cell analyzer.
The company mission at Panix is to become the first and only Panexin one-channel company.
At Cutaneous, we are developing innovative ingredients to detoxify skin.
Ceragen Accelerate helps growers increase the amount of food that they can generate from the same amount of land.
Well, hi, I'm Betty. I'm the founder of Upright. We make plant-based goods that are better for people and our planet, starting with a high-protein instant oat milk.
Most of these companies are just at their nascent stage. Their products aren't going to be things you're going to see on the shelves next year, but they will be the year after that.
Maybe this what flying feels like. Maybe this what flying feels like. Maybe this what flying feels like. Maybe this what flying feels like.
The potential for accelerating life science startups is huge. I think it's probably worthwhile saying that not all startups are successful. Okay, so some do fail. So it is a process of attrition. But for the successful ones, it can be, it's life-changing. Not just for the founders, but just, think of what they're doing. They're changing people's lives. They're curing people, making your parents live longer, curing your children. Like, it is immense what you can do for good in life sciences.
Welcome to IndieBio New York Class 3 Demo Day. Let's start with a question. What happens when you empower scientists who have developed cutting-edge technologies at the lab scale to commercialize those same technologies at scale. That experiment was begun in 2015 at IndieBio San Francisco with great success. And we were extraordinarily pleased to follow in that mission by opening up IndieBio New York. My name is Julie Wolf. I am part of the IndieBio New York team. And more importantly, I will be your live MC for today's event. Now, this is our third digital demo day at IndieBio New York. Did we expect to have 3 virtual demo days when we opened our doors? No. Will this nevertheless be a fun and fast-paced event? Yes. Today's format is going to include 10 3-minute presentations from each of our startups, which will showcase the huge problem in human and planetary health that the startups are attacking, their technical product that addresses this problem, and the opportunity to positively impact many lives through their success. We want to know what you think of our presentations. Please continue to add your kudos, add your comments, and importantly, add your questions into the chat on the Hop-In stage right over to your right. Those are going to be funneled by our team to the CEOs who are standing by here at the IndieBio New York office, as well as gathered around the world. And after that last presentation, I encourage you to go to the Hop-In Expo. There's a button to the left, but don't go there yet. And there, the questions that you have asked will be posed to the CEOs who will be waiting live to answer those questions until the top of the hour. Importantly, you will also find materials to help you learn more about the companies, including their pitch decks and the opportunity for the investors in the audience to make an appointment with the CEOs directly so that they can learn more. Those booths will remain open even after the CEOs go to their first meeting. Those first meetings are available as early as 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And we do ask that you leave those appointments for the investors in the audience whose relationship with these early stage startup is so critical to their success. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the first batch of startups, and that is 4 CEOs who are revolutionizing human health with improved therapeutics, diagnostics, and personal care. Please enjoy this glimpse into the future of human health.
Every year, there are about 4 million infants who are born with some sort of a serious genetic disease, and they are ultimately given a genetic death sentence. There are about 520 million adults who are living with some sort of a genetic disorder for which there is a cure available, but it is just not amenable. CRISPR-Cas is a revolutionary technology. It really holds the promise to cure any genetic disorder, provided that it overcomes its biggest challenge, which is the safety. The chances of having an unintended cut in the genome due to CRISPR-Cas is high. This is leading to the long developmental life cycles. If that can be overcome, it becomes a really potent tool. The mission of Helix is to make sure that genetic diseases become a thing of the past. What we do at Helix is precision engineer the navigator or the programmable unit of the CRISPR-Cas system called the guide RNA for enhanced safety and efficiency in gene therapies. We call ourselves the GPS for gene editing because we really decide on that exact location where the guide RNA can make the cut for a safer therapy and a more efficient therapy so that there are no more unintended cuts anywhere else in the genome. We have a very modular platform. So for example, if a client have a gene of interest in their mind, we can help them decide the precise target, build that guide RNA and test it, validate it in the cell line of their choice. If our client has already worked on a particular guide RNA in their research phase and now they want to translate that, we can take it up from there as well, or just help them in translation of a guide from just being a simple gRNA to a drug substance as they go up the ladder of therapy development. So I think it all started when I had my own son. There was an article in the newspaper which spoke about this non-profit organization which is based out of India, which is working towards getting gene therapies accessible to these kids. And there are about 650 kids registered with this organization. And after 2 years of intense funding,
they could only get the gene therapy accessible for just one child. What was really heartbreaking and was highlighted in that article was that while these 650 kids were waiting, 50 of these kids lost their lives just waiting for the gene therapy. There are currently 185 CRISPR-based therapies which are in the pipeline and which are currently in clinical trials. The entire market is growing at a rapid CAGR of 20%. The total addressable market today is $33 billion US. But as we enable rapid acceleration with advancement in safety as well as efficacy and contribute to lowering the development life cycle, impacting the costs, more and more companies are going to adapt the use of CRISPR in therapeutic settings, thereby expanding the entire market. Anyone joining our movement will be working towards making genetic disorders a thing of the past, in fact touching billions of lives.
For every 1,000 red blood cells, there's 1 white blood cell. So if you have a certain concentration of a cell type, you need to make sure the volume of blood that you're collecting is sufficient so that you not only have at least 1 molecule or 1 cell in that volume that you're collecting, you actually will need a larger number of that so that you make sure you have a statistically reliable test. Now what's challenging is if you're trying to detect those white blood cells, it's the number of interfering cells that are also present. The instrumentation required to detect and quantify your analytes is still relatively large, which still doesn't get the instrument to where the patient is. So as an electrical engineer, I was always fascinated with miniaturization. I did my doctoral studies on making labs for detecting cells, shrinking them, making them really small. And then when the technology got to a point where I felt it was robust enough to actually be used in the hands of patients, that's when we decided to spin off a company. RisLab Health has developed the CytoTracker, which is the first lightweight, portable, affordable blood cell analyzer that can instantly quantify white blood cells and the subtypes. And the first use case will be discrimination between viral and bacterial infections. Once the blood is collected from the patient and it gets fed into the CytoTracker, the interfering material gets removed. And then the white blood cells flow through an electrical cytometer. Based on the differences between white blood cell subtypes, the detector and the classification algorithms that are behind it can essentially recognize which subtype it is, whether the cell is a neutrophil, whether it's a lymphocyte, giving the physician both information about the patient's white counts and also this assessment as to whether this patient's infection is bacterial or not. Decentralized diagnostics can ultimately result in lowering the cost of healthcare for society. Imagine that every physician that needs to make a decision as to whether their patient needs antibiotics or not has access to a point-of-care, low-cost white blood cell analyzer. In the US alone, 250 million antibiotic prescriptions are made per year, and according to the CDC, up to 50% of those prescriptions are either unnecessary or even inappropriate. Globally, at least 2.5 billion prescriptions of antibiotics are made per year. That can potentially translate to a market size of at least 30 billion.
I think there is, among the people that suffer chronic pain, there is this hopeless sensation, and that there is no solution. I'm talking those chronic pain people that have been there for years, and nothing works. So this is one of the opinions I want to change, and I will change. There is an estimation that among 20 to 30% of the entire world's population suffers some levels of chronic pain. We're talking here like 1.8 billion people to 2.1 billion. There are currently non-addictive treatments The first are the non-opioid drugs. There is anticonvulsive and antidepressive drugs. There is cannabis-based drugs. But they all have the same pattern of problems. Almost 50% will stop working on time. If you increase the dose, they still will not work because your body get used to, get adapted to. The second one is that the target that those drugs are trying to shoot down are proteins that are not only in the pain centers, but in your brain, in your cortex, and your behavioral centers, and in other organs of your body. So when you block those targets, you have severe side effects. We can revert that. We can rebalance your body. Our initial candidate is PNX3, a disruptive, first-in-class pannexin 1 channel blocker to treat musculoskeletal chronic pain without side effects or risk of addiction. Most of the drugs that are currently used today to relieve chronic pain, you have to go to a hospital or to get a nurse to get an injection. We are focusing all our technology in having a simple, neat oral drug. We designed 50 different versions of the PNX3 to improve specifically the stability of the molecule and the time that it could be circulating in the bloodstream, so making it less lipophilic and adding more solubility to the molecule. PNX3 is able to reestablish the balance in the tissues that are causing several diseases, in this case, chronic pain. We want to provide, and we will provide, a solution that is safer, more tolerable, but most importantly, more effective than anything that is today in the market. The chronic pain market size is $78 billion, and it's expected to have a CAGR of 6.4% until 2024. If we go for the musculoskeletal chronic pain, the pain related to muscles, joints, and bones, it is a $32 billion market size. But if you go to other indications, for example, stress, major depression, and anxiety, these together are a market of $64 billion. Most of those diseases having pannexin in the core of the cause of the disease. We found that our candidate, PNX3, is able to reduce 97% of this ATP relief from brain cells, which is outstanding. So we can go for many indications with the same pills or with the same strategies, relieving and impacting the life not only of those who have chronic pain, but another billion people around other diseases that are still unsolved and that are still in need for new drugs.
Anti-aging agents, including sunscreens, are increasingly used by men and women of all ages and ethnicities, but scientific studies have cast doubt on their effectiveness in countering the effects of sunlight and pollution on skin, and the incidence of skin cancers continues to rise by about 6% per year. Topical application of antioxidants and sunscreens partly protects skin against solar radiation, but these agents break down very quickly on the skin surface. The FDA is concerned about toxic hormonal effects also, and environmentalists and legislators are worried about toxic effects on corals and marine life. The development of cancer, skin cancer, is in fact an aging process. But putting that to one side, cosmetic aging, the wrinkles that we develop in our skin, the thinning of the skin, the changes that make it more vulnerable to infection and so on. Obviously, nobody's going to die of those conditions, but they are very important to people.
At Cutaneous, our approach is unique because no one else before us attempted to detoxify the skin by sequestering the toxic lipid peroxides.
Our peptides enter skin, they bind these lipid peroxides, they act like sponges and sort of mop up the lipid peroxides, and that prevents them from having harmful effects on the proteins and on the cells and on the DNA. At the same time, the peptides stick to the surfaces of the cells, and so when the cells are lost from the skin by the normal processes, they take the peptide and the lipid peroxides with them. What we're producing is an ingredient that can be incorporated into a wide variety of skincare products. Anti-aging products, skin cleansing, sun care, and anti-acne.
It's safe, it's eco-friendly, it's cheap to produce by green technology, and it's absolutely biodegradable. Our peptides has unique mechanism of action, and very broad range of implications. So we can include it into the skincare, anti-aging, anti-acne, anti-solar radiation. This sector of the market worldwide accounts for 2.2 billion total consumer units worldwide. And the biggest sector of this market is skin cleansing, accounts for 65%.
At a time when ultraviolet light and other wavelengths is getting through the ozone layer more readily, at a time when atmospheric pollutants are all increasing, at a time when the division between skincare products and cosmetics is becoming more and more blurred. For example, anti-aging ingredients are being incorporated into cosmetics now. We believe that the market could be even greater than the one offered by skincare.
Well, I hope you feel inspired after hearing about the ways that human health will be improved in the future. And thank you for your enthusiasm in adding those questions. Austin and Max, we see your questions for Helix and RISLab and Cutaneos. And of course, we do have the ability to send those over to our founders, such as Rohini Kavukunta, who will be answering that live with her Helix team after the last presentation. However, before we do that, let me introduce the second group of IndieBio startups who are lessening the environmental footprint that our daily meals take on the planet. Please enjoy the new ways that we will have more sustainable food systems.
We're now in this revolution where we can create food in extremely different ways that are not only like very, very different, but also healthier and more sustainable.
If you look at restaurants like 11 Madison Park, I mean, they have completely embraced the plant-based movement. For example, this is, I don't know, a 3 Michelin star restaurant that has taken a huge risk, but a huge step forward, embracing the fact that you can have just as cultivated of a dining experience being entirely plant-based as you could, you know, having animal products. And I think that's the future. And I think that there's enormous potential for the overlap of biotechnology and haute cuisine and, you know, the melding of different cultural cuisines with these types of newer products.
At the end of the day, what consumers want are products that are minimally processed, healthier, nutrient-dense, and that they have more variety and texture.
At BOSQUE Foods, we are creating next-generation meat alternatives, starting with whole muscle meat products grown naturally from mycelium. By using our unique process of fermentation and precisely controlling the parameters of growth, we're able to trick the fungi into thinking that it's in a tree trunk or underground so that it grows the way we want it to. Except it's not underground, and it's growing into pure mycelium structures that can be cut and cooked and mixed into the recipes that people love so that they don't have to sacrifice their meat experiences. They can use our products interchangeably. We cultivate our mycelium on side streams from the agri-food industry, thereby valorizing low-cost biomass into high-value products in a matter of days, as opposed to months for plant-based proteins or years for animal-based proteins. So when you compare it in terms of sustainability and in terms of nutrition, texture, and taste, it's really a no-brainer, and we see that there's a huge advantage to working with mycelium.
But at the same time, by creating products that consumers can make their, a one-to-one switch for and that they love and that they adopt, we'll be able to lessen their reliance on animal-based products.
The U.S. whole-cut meat market is projected to be $35 billion today. If we take into account that 1/4 of U.S. shoppers want more meat alternatives in the meat department, then that means that there is a projected $9 billion U.S. whole-cut plant-based meat market. Now at BOSQUE Foods, we're projecting our share of the market today to be 5%, which would be $440 million. However, if we're looking at the plant-based meat market growth of 12% CAGR between today and 2025, that means that our share of the market would also be growing to far over $1 billion. I think the ideal is that a consumer can basically have a one-to-one switch for their animal product with our product. Anytime that, a consumer would want to, have a barbecue or, make themselves whatever their favorite meat dish is, they could instead use the product that we create.
Consumers are used to a certain way of eating and drinking and a certain lifestyle. And I think it's challenging these preconceived notions that alternative, plant-based products are not as nutritious.
A huge problem right now with oat milk and a lot of other dairy alternatives that they don't match the nutritional profile of dairy milk, which is really considered the gold standard in terms of the protein and the vitamins and minerals that it has. A lot of these alternative proteins that we're using just fundamentally right now do not taste good, unfortunately. But the other half of that is that with a cow's milk, if you look at the nutrition of it, what you see is that you're getting products that are just full of fat. But a funny stat is actually that the less fat milk has, the more sugar it has. So if you look at your skim milk, it's pretty close to drinking like a can of pop at that point. It's a ton of sugar. With consumers looking for a healthier, cleaner label product, and oats use a lot less resources environmentally. So by switching from dairy milk to oat milk, just imagine how much water and land and carbon emissions we could save by switching to something that wasn't a liquid, that was a powder instead, that didn't require refrigeration, and that could be packaged a lot more sustainably as well.
So Upright's mission is to make delicious food that's better for people and our planet.
We are creating a high-protein instant oat milk that has double or more the protein of all of our competitors out there. And all you have to do is just add water to it. So it's like a hot chocolate packet. You open it up, you put in a glass of water, you stir it, and voila, instant oat milk. It's similar to beer making, I would say, in that you take these raw oats, you process them by adding enzymes, water, letting time and temperature do its thing, and then there's a filtration process where you're able to then isolate the oat protein, the starches, and the fiber out of this. What we do is keep the stuff that you actually want in your oat milk and then get rid of a lot of the sugary content that you don't want so much.
It's a product that's just as nutritious, that tastes great, and is super convenient, but without any of the unwanted health or environmental impacts.
Each cup packs 8 grams of oat protein, 25% of your daily calcium needs, as well as 20% of your recommended vitamins A, B12, and D needs. Plus, it also offers prebiotic oat fiber to support heart and gut health. Everybody drinks milk, it's a staple of the human diet. And so globally, the milk and alternative market is massive. It's over $600 billion, and it's about $60 billion just in the US alone. By replacing 1 cup of dairy milk with oat milk, people are able to save 39 gallons of water, 19 square feet of land, and over a pound of carbon emissions. And that's just from 1 single cup that you replace. So you can see how very quickly these small decisions can add up to a huge impact.
And beyond that, I think that people can find a lot more convenience and ease in their lives by using an instant product that is readily available in their pantries whenever they want to use it, and to be able to take it wherever they want to go, whether they're at home or if they're heading on a plane or on a bus. It's a really great opportunity for a healthier, more sustainable, and more convenient world.
I think it's really simple. To the degree we can make, plant-based meat or meat alternatives taste more like meat, or even produce the identical meat proteins to make products taste more meaty, people can come to realize that actually you don't need the cow to eat, meat. What is a heme-binding protein? So these are proteins that bind to oxygen, that carry oxygen to and from the muscles. All evidence suggests that those are the globin proteins, and those heme iron proteins that transport the oxygen are the ones that actually give the meat its meaty flavor, its umami, its taste, its flavor, and what makes meat taste to us like meat. That is the crucial ingredient. Can we then express those same proteins, the same identical proteins, but in a different production system? Can we express it in plants, for example, can we express it in cells? Can we express it in different ways? And now, once you start breaking down the building blocks, the amino acid building blocks, the sequences of things, and we can start switching out the means of production. So imagine if you could create that same level of meat-like taste that you can find in a bioreactor, you can find in a cell-based meat, that identical flavor, that meaty, umami flavor, but imagine if you can get it entirely out of plants. And I think until relatively recently in human history, we didn't have the technological tools in which we could produce these proteins in alternate ways. Kyomei is building a platform to grow meat proteins inside the structure of a plant. Our first product is bovine myoglobin, which is the Himalayan proteins that give meat its particularly umami and flavorful taste. We're not looking to make meat taste like meat because meat already tastes like meat. What we're doing is making plant-based meat alternatives taste more like meat. We take plants and we effectively transform their genetic sequences, and the plant grows by the power of photosynthesis, so sunlight and water. As the plant grows, the proteins grow. Once the plant reaches maturity, the plant is harvested, and we either extract the proteins from the biomass or crush the plant into whatever product we are imparting. Our proteins can be almost a platform for a large variety of producers that cater to the end user to use our proteins produced entirely from plants to power their plant-based meat offerings. I think we could touch 1 billion lives and make $1 billion. I think we touch far more than 1 billion lives. I mean, I think to the degree that you're actually making an improvement on products that are growing extremely rapidly across the world, especially among young consumers, you have the ability to make a massive impact. I mean, if you help a brand expand their reach and expand the consumption of plant-based meat at the expense of animal agriculture, to that degree, you make a massive impact on the world. It's that simple. If you do this at a good cost structure with a good commercial pipeline, the market is endless. The market is the human population who eats meat. But the way we can contribute to that ecosystem of people trying to do that, empowering not just one product, but many products across the ecosystem, and become almost a platform, powering these products and making them taste better. To that degree, we can impact our world. It's that simple.
I think the concept of the microbiome is pretty new in the agricultural space, all things considered in agriculture. This isn't an area where a lot of people have paid attention to in the past, and it's only really started to gain traction in the last little while.
Greenhouses are susceptible to things like heat stress. In tomatoes, this causes something called blossom end rot. So there's certain microbes to basically help relieve these stress symptoms, allowing their plants to do better throughout the growing season. It's really, really hard to culture a lot of these microbes that you're looking for. So you can do a genetic screen, you can identify the one that you're like, yeah, I think that's gonna be like the amazing growth promoter. So these are really complicated systems with a lot of interacting and moving parts. By using machine learning, you can find these patterns and understand how these microbes are working without rationally understanding every conceptual little piece.
So with increasing pressures from climate change, it's going to continue to get harder and harder to produce food. We're going to have more erratic weather and more strain on our food production systems. So growers need more ways to sustainably increase crop yields without impacting the environment in a negative way.
So at Ceragen, we are developing probiotics for plants that increase crop yields by improving the plant's response to environmental stress. So you can think of these products sort of like anti-anxiety meds for your plants that help improve their response to stress so that they produce more food. There's a few different beneficial traits for plants like phosphorus solubilization, nitrogen fixation is a great one, but right now we're focusing on plant growth promotion. Being able to culture these microbes, especially designing mechanisms for culturing the microbes that are very difficult to culture using, say, standard techniques like petri dishes, it's a very unique skill set. Our solution is designed for use in these hydroponic systems. It's very easy to apply. You only have to apply it once to twice throughout the growing season. You use the existing watering infrastructure, so it takes very little time for the growers.
We're in the process of developing new products for a multitude of crops. We want to restore the natural ecosystems in that hydroponic environment. If a farmer uses this and applies it to all of their tomatoes, we're going to see an increase in about 8 kilograms per plant. Scaled up to the farm, where the farmer has about 200,000 tomatoes under glass in these hydroponic systems, then that's about 1.6 million tomatoes per year. And if we look at the North American level, where there are 20,000 acres of tomatoes under glass, that's an increase of 800 million kilograms of tomatoes each year. And that's just in North America, whereas if we talk globally, we're going to be touching billions of lives through billions of kilograms of increased food production. It's like, wow, we have this amazing market opportunity here with these microbial products and the ability to not only make a social impact where we help increase fresh vegetable production so that the people have a more sustainable, better opportunity to access those sort of fresh vegetables, but also to increase the environmental sustainability of agriculture by increasing the amount of food that we can produce from the same amount of land.
All right, we see that those questions are coming in, and just after our next set of presentations, our CEOs, like Betty Tang, will be there to answer your questions live in the expo at the startup booths. And don't forget that the pitch decks will be available in those booths, as well as the ability for investors to make meetings and book meetings with the CEOs. Before that, I'd like to introduce our final set of two startups who are working on some of the foundational aspects that can affect our everyday lives, often without us even knowing it. Please enjoy this glimpse into the future of innovative biotech infrastructure.
The food industry generates 6 million to 8 million tons of seashell waste every year, and this seashell waste often contains a huge amount of chitosan. These polysaccharides have exceptional characteristics, including biodegradability and versatile functionality. And the way we as humans deal with waste is very clumsy and disorganized. Nature, on the other hand, fix waste back into the ecosystem, regenerating new life from organic materials. So in this way, seashell waste is an amazing and impactful resource and should be utilized more within the materials and the textile industry.
When I work with brands and designer, I develop the passion with materials. So I think material is the fundamental start point of the product.
At Tomtex, we are turning seashell waste and mushroom to our bio-based material. We extract chitin from seashell waste and mushroom, then combine chitin with other biopolymer and green substance through a strong biopolymizer process. Chitosan can improve the material's property, like elasticity or tensile strength or the hydrophobicity of the materials. We pour it into the mold and capture all the texture. Within 2 to 3 days, we can have the materials. Animal leather has such beautiful texture and colors, but those exotic animals are solely cured for their skin. At Tomtex, our design team have figured out a method to mimic that exotic texture. Our mold is made out of aluminum as well, which can be recyclable. And additionally, to protect the ocean, we use natural dye in dyeing process.
Our technology is very easy to scale up because we use the existing equipment and facility again for our productions, so we don't create the whole new system to create the materials.
We envision the world where people surrounding themselves with high-performance materials, sources directly from waste, not fossil fuel. I think a lot of scientists and brands, designer, even customer are looking forward and have the same mindset and vision at this point.
By 2028, our projections of the biomaterials can worth of $573 million. But the global synthetic leather market worth of $57 billion, and the leather market even bigger is $624 billion. With our materials, if we can create something that as leather or like even better than leather, we can really capture the whole leather market.
The way we prepare samples today is not scalable. Each sample requires a significant amount of labor, a significant amount of time, 4 to 6 hours per sample, and even then requires trained technicians with a high level of skill. People have been trying to tackle various portions of these problems over the last decade or two. However, people have been focused on addressing only subsections of the overall sample prep workflow. What there needs to be is a focus of combining all the different steps associated with current sample preparation workflows into a single easy-to-use and automated system. So the world is going to be changed by genomics. It's going to affect so many aspects of our life, from how we eat to how we sleep, just understanding who we are as biological creatures. And none of this is possible without genomic technologies to analyze and inform us about the underlying genomics. And being able to increase the accessibility to those technologies and increase the throughput of that type of science and discoveries is what we're trying to do at InsoBio. What InsoBio's microfluidic technology does is it utilizes tiny micro features, sort of like the prongs of a fork, to capture extremely long molecules, such as DNA, in solution. We are able to keep the genomic DNA in solution during the entire extraction and purification process, whereas currently available methods generally have to precipitate the DNA, dehydrate and rehydrate that DNA, which causes loss but also damage to that DNA. What InsoBio can do is uniquely deliver any size DNA fragments for any type of sequencing platform. Reduce the hands-on time from 1 hour to 5 minutes, speed up the entire process from 4 hours to 40 minutes, and leverage microfluidic innovations to yield higher purity and higher quality sample with less DNA damage. What I believe is that we'll be part of the background. We'll be part of one of those ubiquitous instruments that sits on a lab bench that performs a certain process that everybody sees and recognizes and knows how to use. So similar to how computers have touched more than just probably 1 billion lives, genomics is likely going to have a similar level of impact. But similar to how computers couldn't have made that level of impact without increased accessibility and further democratization, the same is for genomics. Preparing genomic samples right now is much too difficult even for the best and trained scientists. It's inconsistent and very labor intensive and completely not scalable, and this is what we want to address. So what we see from our system is the capability to not only streamline and automate more of the workflow, but we see a higher quality of DNA being prepared by our system. We're increasing the poly read lengths about 30 to 35% above the average. And this is the primary metric that people use to determine the quality of the DNA during sequencing. Well, right now, if I walk into, a hospital and they're trying to analyze me for, say, a particular drug of what to give me, they would analyze me as a male, maybe this height, this age range, 30 to 40 age range, and then they would prescribe me something from that. They haven't taken account who I am as an individual, and I think that's what genetics is able to offer the world. Is each person that comes in for a treatment will be evaluated for who they are from an underlying biological perspective and be given the most effective treatment strategy for their underlying biology.
We love the enthusiasm and the questions that you guys are adding into the chat. Thank you for supporting our startups. We will be adding your question, Lita, about Tomtex's durability into the expo booth, and you can visit Wen and the Tomtex team in just a minute. As you can see, we also are here with the IndieBio team, the IndieBio New York team, Stephen Chambers, Xavier Lopez, and Lindsay Atkinson. Also with us virtually are Gwen Cheney and Alex Hall Daniels. If you're interested in meeting with that team, the IndieBio New York team, we will be present at the booth as well as the rest of the founders. After one final message, I would like to introduce the MVP of SOSV, our MGP, Managing General Partner, Sean O'Sullivan, who I should note is in the middle of Peru, which might explain his background.
And you've just seen 10 amazing startups who have uncovered some of the biggest mysteries of how life works and have harvested biology as a technology to address urgent and unmet societal needs. For the investors in the audience, your calling, should you choose to accept it, is to apply your own self and your own funds to addressing problems that really matter. We come together today to recognize the ingenuity of these teams, these small acorns from which great oaks will grow. Every year, IndieBio selects 36 startups for development. And as of this writing, we get 2 to 3 new unicorns and many successful businesses per year out of these humble beginnings and fertile grounds. It takes time, but it's a remarkable success rate. You would do well to invest in these companies, but I'm not asking you to put money into these companies to make money. I'm asking you to put your souls into helping these startups thrive, because doing work that matters is really the only thing that matters, and it brings meaning to our lives. Addressing suffering in the world will create a more just and stable society. Yeah. Attacking climate change. It's not just for future generations, it's for people already living on the planet. Yes. So yes, I'm asking you to commit to human health and to planetary health by talking with 1 to 3 of these startups that most appeal to a problem you think is worth fighting for and solving. So thank you for your time and for believing in miracles. Together, we can change the world. Now, right after this, these CEOs are available right now in the startup booths. There are links there as well to make appointments with them. You have no excuses. Thank you for your time.
All right, well, you heard the man. What are you waiting for? The show will continue in the expo booths where you can meet with all of the startup founders. Thank you very much for your attention. And also, thanks to our partners, ESD and PFNYC. Thanks to IndieBio New York and IndieBio San Francisco teams. Thanks to the SOSV back office, especially Josh, Norm, Kayla, Ned, Nolan, Stefan, Matt, Chris. I'm sure there's more. Everyone, so helpful. And thanks to Open Cell Media and Tharp Films for our wonderful productions. We'll see you at the next IndieBio New York Demo Day.